Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Welcome to My Breastie Says, two friends exploring life during and after breast cancer from two totally different perspectives. I'm Chris, a breast cancer survivor and a mother of two.
I'm Jenni, a physical therapist and medical professional who specializes in breast cancer care. Together, we created this podcast to bring both sides of the story, the medical insight and the lived experience. Okay, welcome to our episode. Today, we are talking about something that really impacts everyone who's been diagnosed with cancer, but we don't actually put a name to it. But it's all of the extra gadgets and items and things that you need to get through this period. And today we have the perfect guest to help us with that. Her name is Elissa Calver. She is the founder of WeGotThis.org. And that's a nonprofit dedicated to empowering the cancer community. It's kind of like she had described it to us like a baby list registry, but for those who've had cancer. So we're really excited to talk to her and learn how we can support one another. Elissa, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat.
So tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about the origin story of WeFoundThis.org.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer back in July of 2021. And when I was diagnosed, the questions coming in, like, how can I help? What can I do? Started, which I'm very grateful for and so lucky that I have a support system. But I really didn't know what I needed. And it was this unintentional burden that seemed like not the best solution. And my daughter was just turning 1 right when I was diagnosed, a few days after. And I thought, like, it wasn't all that long ago that I was using baby list and baby registries and, years before using wedding registries.
Right.
And
we're all familiar with those.
Exactly. And, nothing wrong with doing a GoFundMe or anything like that. I just I wasn't ready to do anything. And everyone reaching out, I felt like, why isn't there like a go-to thing that makes this easier?
Yeah. And a big difference between cancer, well, lots of differences, but one main difference I was thinking for babies and wedding registries is those of us making the list, we kind of have an idea of what we want. But as with a new diagnosis, you don't even know what you don't have yet, right?
Exactly. And it's like we've categorized the way and normalized how we ask and receive help in the good times. And we made it a totally different process for the hard times, and really no process at all. It's kind of like, because we don't know what to do, there's, GoFundMe is like a catch-all, and then meal trains are kind of like a catch-all. Those are like kind of like the two things. And
So I was going to say, the one thing about meal trains, it's like sometimes it's like, especially when I think you and I were both had preschool kids at the time, or not you, not really, but I did. And sometimes when they do a meal train, it's excess. and you end up like not being able to use everything. So I just think your
Mhm.
idea is brilliant. Sorry to
Thank
interrupt, but
you. No, no, appreciate
I'm,
it.
yeah, no, I love it.
Well, and then even with the meal train, I mean, I didn't know. First off, when you get diagnosed with cancer, it's like I got in this mode like everything is trying to murder me. I don't
Yeah,
know why I
right.
got cancer,
Yeah.
like all of these things. So I didn't know what kind of diet I was following yet or anything like that. I also throughout my initial chemo, I mean, I couldn't taste for a pretty decent amount of time. So what I wanted on a daily basis, I never could predict. And
Right.
I found myself more asking people anyway, like, if you do want to give something, which I felt uncomfortable even doing at first. And my joke is that because I wasn't specific, I just said, like, just you reaching out is enough. Thank you so much. People want to help and like feel a part of it. And so everyone sent me blankets.
I
That's my
read that. That made me laugh to hear that. Like 30 blankets later, we got this.org was found.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. And everyone
funny.
has their examples. A
Mhm.
lot of people, the one I hear most is either blankets, coloring
Mhm.
books, or candles. And
Coloring books. That's
yeah,
weird.
adult coloring books.
There's such a thing. That's
Oh
so
yeah,
interesting. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, these are all great things. It's just
sure.
anything in excess, doesn't really make sense. And there's
No.
just better ways to be able to curate that support. But the biggest
Mhm.
piece that I realized when doing that was I was like, well, okay, so I want to make this easier on the people going through it, and not just the patient, but the caregiver and their family. Because like, why should that all also land on my husband to figure
Mhm.
out as well? And but I don't want them to have more work. So how do we make this easier on everyone without anyone having to feel uncomfortable or do more work? And the solution had already been figured out for the good
Mhm.
times, like we talked about. Like gift registries make this easy. I mean, if I have a friend who's pregnant, like I wouldn't know what to do if they didn't have a registry. Like, what am I going to do?
1000%, right.
Guess like what type of diapers they want or bottles?
Yeah.
Like, we tell each other what those
Mhm.
are, and that's a lot of times how we find out what we need anyway. So that was how I viewed it, was like, let's redefine and evolve what it's like to give
Mhm.
and receive in the hard times, and let's make it as easy as possible for everyone who's affected, the
And I
patient,
like
whatever.
that part about the easiness because there is so much awkwardness. And we've talked about this in other episodes, how your friends and family really want to be there, but they don't always know what to say. And, you again, as the person, you have enough on your plate having received this
Yeah.
diagnosis to then have that burden. So this takes away the awkwardness for everybody. It's really great.
Yeah. Well, and so like the root of all of this is the registry, right? Like that's kind of the thing that hit me the hardest at the beginning. Why doesn't this exist?
Mhm.
And basically, like, what do I have to do to make this exist as quickly as I can? So that's what I did. I ended up doing a GoFundMe for the initial 100,000 that we raised, and have been doing lots of fundraisers and peer-to-peer fundraising and all that over the past 4 years. But then what's evolved has been kind of beyond the registries. I think of it as three categories. It's the registries, the
Mhm.
recommendations, like the products and services that we don't know what we need, or like what
Yeah.
Right.
brands are recommended, making it easier to curate that. And then the resources. So at the beginning, when someone would reach out that they couldn't pay their rent or things like this, like you just want to help everyone and you
Right.
can't. And so what I found out quickly was the way that we do that is by collaborating and working
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
And so I kind of joke a lot that I think I'm a bit of like a disruptor in the nonprofit space because one, I don't come from the nonprofit space,
Mhm.
but also I'm like, well, let's, bring all of our resources together to help everyone. And not that other people haven't thought of that. That's not like an original idea. But the way that we've created it recently, so over the past few months, we really evolved all this knowledge from the first few years of being like, okay, we have these hundreds of nonprofits we know directly amidst thousands more that exist. So how can we take them all and make it as easy as possible for people to find what they need? And so we've done the initial work on that. If you go to wegotthis.org and click on the resource directory, you can filter by financial support, retreats,
Oh,
health and
that's
wellness, like
great.
whatever that might look like. And then what
Yeah.
I'm hoping to grow in 2026 is really evolving that, to such an extent, because some of the resources that it's like there's a great nonprofit called the Change Reaction here in LA. And when someone messages me like they need a rent check or something like that, like that is the perfect solution if you're in the LA area. If you're not, though, that's not your solution.
Right.
So we filter things by national and regional and that, but I don't know every nonprofit that exists throughout the country. So that's what we're trying to take more time to do. And then kind of copy and paste that over to the recommendation side too. Like, there's so many options when it comes to port accessible clothing or nausea solutions or just like joy solutions. Like I try to encourage people, let's normalize like asking for the things that also just make you feel human. So I think evolving that really brings more solutions, but it also expands the community.
Yeah. So if I'm a listener and I'm not going through cancer, but I have my sister, my aunt, my mother, whomever, but so I don't know much about cancer, I could go on there and there's a whole thing of like recommendations of like the basics, like whether
Yeah,
it's like a water bottle for chemo or a blanket, like you said, the blanket.
exactly. So
Or
there's
just like a checklist. Is there like a camping checklist? Not camping. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
think of
yeah.
like the kids when they're going away
Like
to
to summer
school
camp.
trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally,
Right.
totally. So there's two best places to start if you're a supporter. So if you're just heading to our site, we got this.org. The first place to head to is the recommendation shop. If you click there, we've started curating. We have over 1,000 products. This has just been live for a few months, and so it's growing really fast. And we already had all these partner relationships. We just hadn't done it in this way yet. So once we were able to have the funding to do that, that was really like my first priority to create. So it's separated by symptom, treatment. There's all sorts of filters that you can do of what you might be looking for. So while it's great for a thriver who's going through treatment to look at recommendations and things, when you click on the product, you'll see there's a button to add it to your registry if you are a, patient, survivor, thriver, or to purchase it. And so I kind of consider the shop like the perfect solution for the supporter
I
because
feel
you can just go and
Absolutely.
see what you need.
Well,
Yeah.
it's great because when you get diagnosed, your head's spinning. And the second you get diagnosed, if you're the patient that is open with it to your friends and family, they react. I'm sure you know, Jenny, dealing with different patients, like the reaction is immediate that people want to do something right then and there. It really just, and
Absolutely. People feel helpless.
they feel helpless. They want to like just join in, whether it's a meal train, whether it's whatever. And sometimes, as the patient being in that, and you can, Alyssa, talk to this too, you feel overwhelmed. Like, what do I need? So I
Right.
Yeah.
think simplifying that to like, okay, I'm just gonna either have my partner or myself go in and be like, just click on all the basics. Let people help. Like, is there a
Right.
basic need thing so that people can start this and not send my house all these meals that I can't eat because I don't know if I'm seeing a nutritionist or if it's
Now, I have
causing. Yeah.
questions for each of you. So you've both been through it. Is there any product or item that you ended up loving that you never thought about prior? Just kind of springing this on both of you. Or Elissa, you must have certain products that you love from your site.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of examples that I have. There's a new product actually I have right here that it was started by an awesome entrepreneurial thriver as well, and it's called Spongies,
Oh,
and it's like medical
Oh.
grade pillow. So it's mainly been used directly to hospitals.
mm-hmm.
And why I was so excited about this, I do have a port, so luckily,
Okay.
like we're not fishing for veins all the time. But there are times when I have to get like a scan, maybe on a weekend or after hours, and I know based on when I've scheduled it, like if there's not going to be a nurse that can access my port. And honestly, that's probably like one of the most stressful things that I face.
Oh,
Because like I know, to some on the outside, it's like, what? Like, that's probably nothing for you. And it's like, well, no, that's like, it's an unpredictable thing. And I've had the experience of being poked the max amount of times and having to reschedule and like these things. And like, it gives me a lot of anxiety. And so this is like an example of one of their pillows. It's like a heart. It's cool. It comes in different colors. And
you guys can all see this on YouTube. I just have to
yeah, yeah.
remind
The
So
visual.
everyone.
yeah, I'll explain more.
Little
So it's a
visual.
heart with like an indent for your arm. And so you can rest your arm on it while you're getting an infusion or like getting, an
Yeah,
IV
okay.
put in.
Okay.
And, I think sometimes we think like solutions like this, like, oh, it's great for kids, and that it's like, I need
Right.
this. Like,
Right. Yeah.
this is something
Other
I
people,
need
right.
too.
Adults don't like being poked. Could you sleep with that? Because I'm thinking too, like after surgery, sometimes it's women like to have their arm supported on a pillow.
Yeah.
Is that how, have you given that a try? Would that work that way?
Yeah, and it's also with the crevice, you can like hug it nicely.
Mhm.
We have a lot of other good pillow solutions too, like if you can't
Mhm.
roll over after a double mastectomy or other things
Right.
like that
Yes.
also. And a
Ooh,
lot of those
that
things I point out, like I have stage 4 breast cancer, but I've never had a double mastectomy. So
Right.
I learn about a lot of these pieces through other thrivers. And
Mhm.
that's why another thing that we created as a resource is under our community tab. We call them thriver lists. And it's like the top 5 recs, which Chris, I'll have to
Oh,
have
that's
you do one of
great.
these. Yeah,
I
like your
love
top
that.
5 things that like people should know and why it was helpful.
Which makes sense because even we're also individual, and even with like back to the baby registry list, moms all seem to have the like, oh my God, you must get this swing for your baby. And then your baby never wants to be in a swing. Or, everyone is so individual. That makes a ton of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been great. And then being able to also curate, like making sure it's not just female or it's not just breast cancer. Like you can look at if you're going through leukemia treatment or lymphoma or,
Mhm.
and so, a lot of the recommendations might overlap from one cancer to another, but
Sure.
that's why we try to separate out the recommendations too, based on like different surgeries versus chemo versus radiation. Like radiation burns have nothing to do with chemo side effects,
Right.
So these things kind of cross over and getting the right things and knowing like this reminds me of when you have a baby too, right? You have so much extra stuff that you don't even know what your baby's gonna like.
You don't even
And so
have the
you might
room
have,
for it. Yeah.
Right. Then just the
It's like
space, the funds, all of it.
all of it.
exactly. So same thing with cancer. It's like you might have all of this excess stuff that you
Mhm.
don't even end up needing. Like when I first
Mhm.
got diagnosed, I assumed that I would have a mastectomy. So
Sure.
like during that first month, I might have asked for stuff had this existed.
Mhm.
And then I learned that's actually not, necessarily a thing for metastatic breast cancer.
Mhm.
When did you
And
get diagnosed, Alyssa? Sorry to,
no
I
worries.
don't know your
Yeah.
story that much. So if you could like
Yeah.
dive in there a little.
So I was diagnosed July of 2021. And like I said earlier, just a few days before my daughter's first birthday, that year after giving birth, she was born in July of 2020. So like,
Dear
a
gosh.
lot happening.
Yeah, a lot going on that year.
Yeah, a lot happened that year. I started, I played tennis a lot in adult life. I played back in high school. In college, I played field hockey. I was a very East Coast
Mhm.
athlete. But so in adult life, played tennis mostly for a long time. And so after giving birth, tennis was like the perfect COVID sport, getting to go outside.
Absolutely.
And that was when I first started noticing like the weirdest, symptoms of not at all near my breast though. Like my feet would start to go numb. I thought it was plantar fasciitis for all these
Oh,
things,
weird.
but like 20 to 30 minutes into and you can
Mhm.
probably understand, Jenny, I was going to physical therapy like 3 times a week. I was convinced there was something just like muscular going on because all my blood work was normal and all this stuff, but like I couldn't have a sneaker on for more than like 30 minutes on the court. It would feel like my foot was going to explode out of it, and
I have
it
to
would
be
feel
honest, I've never heard that before with as like a sign or symptom of a cancer diagnosis.
yeah. And who knows what goes to what, but the second
Right.
that I started chemo, it went away completely.
That's wild.
And
Okay.
Wait, did you
when
have to get any sort of, did they give you like, did they think it was like, when they give you the needle to the foot or something? Because I had this weird, what is it called when they block something? Oh my God, I'm having a,
I know you've got a head cold and
yeah,
like a nerve block or an
yeah,
EMG.
like did you ever get like a nerve block for it? Sorry.
no, luckily no.
Okay, 'cause that's interesting because a year before I was diagnosed, same thing with my
Really? Oh,
left
now
foot.
I'm gonna have
Oh,
But
to.
interesting.
and I
Interesting.
never thought anything of it, but like it went on for I want to say like 3 to 6 months, and I was in so much pain. But I was in pain where I was waking up like in excruciating pain in the middle of the night, like
And your pain
shooting
was
pain.
also feet?
It was my left foot. It was shooting a pain down my leg
Wow.
to my foot. So
Hmm.
I don't know. You're just bringing up some stuff that I didn't
Yeah.
even think about.
Well, because now, so living with metastatic cancer, it's like, I've had recurrences. So I know what it feels like when I am well aware that there's cancer in my body. And when I've had recurrences, the foot stuff has come back up. So like there was even a CT scan, now it's been like a year and a half when I had my last recurrence, and my CT was fine, but my feet were starting to go numb again. And it's different from like neuropathy numb, like,
Right, right.
and certain
And it's
things.
both feet, like they're both the same. Like both they hurt the same, or one's a little worse than
I
the
don't know.
other.
I can't quite remember. Like, it's
Okay.
not like in my memory, there's like, oh, one was way worse than the other. That was kind of both. I'm sure sometimes one was worse than
Right,
the
right. That
other.
makes sense.
Yeah, and then I remember after that CT scan, I something was like I'm still feeling off even though it was clear. And I started like feeling more in my breast, and I thought I felt something. And it turned out that we ended up doing a breast MRI, and we
Okay.
did find stuff. And not to scare that, like, every scan is different. So like
Yeah.
the next CT scan did catch it.
Hmm.
And what's, because I think we do sometimes, and there's totally things we don't catch. Like I was told that because I had a baby, like that's why I'm having these issues.
Oh yeah.
But
Chris
in
was told
Yeah.
similar.
yeah, yeah. But in this last one, just to kind of like clarifying the scan thing, is like, even though we did end up finding it by doing the more detailed breast MRI, we didn't do anything about it for a couple months because
Hmm.
even though we found it and we're doing the biopsies, like there were certain things we were waiting to see before we decided what course of treatment to take. And I know it's like so counterintuitive to think of like you're just chilling with like a big tumor in your
Right.
breast.
Yeah.
But it all becomes relative depending on where you're at. And
Mhm.
I've totally reframed in my mind, like cancer in my breast does not scare me. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, that's a different normal for me because I know I have active cancer, but
Hmm.
that's not what we die from. Like we
Hmm.
die from it spreading and going into stage 4. And so while we knew it was contained to my breast, it was worth like taking that beat to figure
Hmm.
out what we were going to do
Get the
next.
the correct treatment, which is what you're looking for. And this is not what we were originally talking about, but you said something I think is so interesting, how you can kind of tell now when something is going on and if a tumor is growing. Can you share a little bit about that? And I ask because I think a lot of women, full stop, if you've been diagnosed or not, are not really in touch with their bodies. Like we are just pushing those needs away, focusing on everything else.
Mhm.
And then, in addition to having a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment, where suddenly you are inundated with all of these new sensations, can't tell like up from down. How did you get to a place where you are able to interpret what you're feeling and feel confident in yourself with that?
I think a lot of it is whether I'm confident or not. The second that I feel something or like something's off, I'm so confident in my care team
Okay.
that I do feel extremely comfortable bringing it up. And
Hmm.
that
That's
I think
great.
is like the most important piece of, it's hard. Like I've had not good oncologists and not good doctors, and I've had great ones. My primary care doctor before I was diagnosed, I really, really liked her. She
Hmm.
completely dismissed my symptoms.
Hmm.
And it's like, but it's tough. Like it was during COVID. It was,
Mhm.
you didn't go into the doctor unless you absolutely had to.
Right.
Like there were certain elements that felt like okay to wait. And I was 34 when I was diagnosed. I'm 38 now. Wasn't getting regular mammograms. I don't have a family
Good.
history. I'm not high risk. Like, there's just so many components that I think the best thing we can do is know our body as well as we can. Like, luckily, my husband found the lump.
Hmm.
And to
Read
me,
that a lot.
it hadn't felt that off because it reminded me of a clogged milk duct, like
Okay,
which
sure.
I hadn't been breastfeeding for a while. And I had a really hard time breastfeeding, which makes sense because
Right.
like my nipple is inverting and things like that, that in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, because I was, having
Yeah.
extremely aggressive cancer starting to grow throughout my body. But those are the aspects I think are most important is like definitely like whatever gimmicky things will get you to check yourself, like feel it on
Mhm.
the first and things like that. But I've felt like I had a fist-sized tumor in my left breast last recurrence. And another thing, well, that sounds like scary, like the
A
fist-sized
fist size?
tumor.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I have a small fist, but that's what my surgeon said it was the size of when they took it out. But like,
Oh
while
my
this certain things, like the size of that tumor, like that's not as scary as the tiny tumor that was in the back of my skull in my brain, you know, or like, you know, I had much smaller ones in my liver, but it was completely covered.
Hmm.
So sometimes we like assume
The
things,
bigger, yeah, it's
the
like the
bigger it is, the
centimeters.
worse.
Mine were like needle points. Like that's how big they were. But they were all over my right breast. But
Hmm.
they were like
Yeah,
little tiny pieces of rice or half the size of that. But it was super aggressive. So yeah, it's like it's all relative, right? To,
totally. And
mhm.
how do you pick, like you can't remove a little piece of rice.
No,
Um,
that's
which
why
is
I had to
why,
get, yeah, I got a double
yeah.
mastectomy. And so you were diagnosed, and so where are you at now with your treatments and everything?
Yeah, so I'm like 4.5 years in. I just changed treatment not all that long ago. So last year in January actually was when I switched. I mean, I'm on like my sixth line of treatment in terms of
Hmm.
combinations of chemos and things.
Hmm.
And there's big differentiations in the treatments because I know I have metastatic friends who have been on the same treatment for like 10 years. We also have different types. So like I'm a bit more rare. I'm HER2 positive
Me
and
too.
are you triple positive or just HER2 positive?
Just HER2 positive.
Yeah, so me
You
too. I'm
too?
ER and PR negative. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
which is why we're stage three aggression, right? Are you stage three like as far as aggressiveness?
well, I'm stage four because it's spread like it was right off the bat in diagnosis throughout my body.
But don't they do two different? I remember I was like stage one for that, but then as far as like, don't they do two different stages, like how aggressive it is, and because it's
Hard to keep track of
HER2,
all those.
it's so yeah.
Maybe because if yours was contained to the breast, it might have been like, yeah, it's not past stage one because it didn't leave the breast, but in turn, so you might have had different criteria
Hmm.
with that. Yeah, mine's just like, oh, we're at the worst. It's all just the worst. But HER2 positive and hormone negative in stage four metastatic is pretty rare, like up there with triple negative. So it's
Hmm.
like 15%, I think, get
Mhm.
that. And then like de novo. So me being diagnosed stage four right off the bat. Same thing, kind of unique. So the treatments that I
Wait, what's
have
de novo?
that from diagnosis, I was stage four. So I wasn't in
Okay,
earlier stage and then it recurred in stage four, which can happen to a third
gotcha.
of diagnosis.
Hmm.
And that's where it's just so different, like what treatments we would be on. Because like I wouldn't go into early menopause, right? Same with you, I'm
Sure. Yep.
assuming,
Makes
because
sense.
you're not hormone positive. So drugs like Ibrance, you know, that work really well for some of my friends who are hormone positive, and HER2 negative, like that's not even an option for me. Whereas now I'm back on Herceptin and Perjeta, which are really targeted
Or
for HER2 positive.
HER2. Hmm.
And I'm in kind of this really unique place because Herceptin and Perjeta. So I was initially on TCHP, Taxotere, carboplatin, Herceptin, and Perjeta. The
Hmm.
carboplatin was not the most up-to-date treatment. So when I switched oncologists, that got corrected of dropping that. And then after my initial 8 rounds of like, you know, the stereotypical aggressive chemo to
Hmm.
tame everything down, which worked really well. Luckily, with HER2 positive and aggressive cancer, chemo
Yeah.
works really well once
Yeah.
they figured out how to target
Pick
it.
pick the right one.
Exactly. So then when I was on maintenance with Herceptin and Perjeta, it was about 4 months into that I had the recurrence in my left breast and in my
Mhm.
brain. And I know
Oh,
people who have been on Herceptin and Perjeta again, like 10 years,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
just wasn't that solution for me at that
Mhm.
time. What's interesting now, so since then, I was on a drug called Enhertu, which
Mhm.
there's now a ton of updates that they might be using Enhertu paired with Herceptin and I'm going to misquote the study, so I'm not going to say it, but I know that Enhertu,
it's okay. Yeah.
they just talked about this at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium that now is considered maybe the top option for initial
Oh,
treatment for
wow.
metastatic, which is pretty cool.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I was on that. It completely got rid of my brain tumors. It was
Oh,
amazing.
Wait, what was it called again?
And HER2,
And oh, okay, interesting.
but
Yeah.
at the time, you know, we're talking this was this is like 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was a part of a clinical trial with a mixture of the drugs, and there wasn't as much protocol for anti-nausea and other things that I could do. And
Okay. Oh
it
God.
destroyed my quality of life. I read it
Okay.
about a lot in my book, and it was like the lowest point of my life,
Wow.
of really learning that like actually surviving is not enough. Like I'm not willing to do anything. I'm not willing
Exactly.
to.
That's how I felt. I mean, I feel from what I remember, and I could be that Herceptin, which is a part of all what we're talking about, definitely reacts better with the chemo, right? Does the chemo agents, depending on what cocktail mix you're having.
So
So
yeah, so like
yeah,
for early stage, you can mix that with chemo, it works great. And that's typically, and then you would, depending on your situation, like it sounds like with yours, you had the double mastectomy, and
hmm
then maybe you had radiation and, with
I did.
treatment.
Hmm.
Yeah. So with my treatment, it worked really well, just like it did, like what you're explaining. But then I can't stop treatment since it's metastatic. So
Yeah.
once you're in stage 4, you have cancer forever, as it stands. And that's what makes it terminal, is because there's a limited amount of treatments. So once went into maintenance mode with Herceptin and Perjeta, which relative to other things was like, that to me is like living with a chronic illness. Like
Mhm.
that's where we've evolved so much that I don't think people realize.
Yes. Yes.
But then I had the recurrence, been on a few lines of treatment since then. This last line of treatment, Kadcyla, after the fist-sized tumor I had last November, worked really well. The issue with this one is that, though I'm not on it anymore, I stopped a few months ago, is that it was causing excessive bleeding, which is
Oh,
weird.
no,
So
that's a
like
problem.
I like had like a scab on my
Mhm.
forehead that I accidentally picked, and it bled I couldn't get it to clot for 3.5 hours. Like I
Oh
kept
my
trying
goodness.
to clot it. So I had to go to the ER, which seemed like the most ridiculous thing
Right.
ever.
Yes.
I had to get it stitched to close it. Not only, so she was like, okay, I'm going to put a tiny stitch. She stitched it, and then it started oozing again. We
Oh
had to
my goodness.
remove the stitch and do a thicker stitch. And so I started having like excessive nosebleeds, which I get nosebleeds a lot, but
Mhm.
these wouldn't clot. So it was like all of a sudden I would be driving and it would look like a murder scene,
Oh
like
my
because I couldn't
goodness.
catch
Yeah.
it. It would feel like a runny nose. And that's when we were like, so I became anemic. I had to get a blood transfusion, all these other things.
Goodness.
Oh my God.
And it is a symptom that like is
Mhm.
reported and exists. And I was like, I mean, God forbid I like got in an accident or something. I mean, this is really
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
So ultimately we were like, okay, we gotta switch treatment because of this side effect. It's so dangerous. And so I switched. So while I was going to be switching, I was going to go into a clinical trial which combines Herceptin, which was invented at UCLA where I'm treated by Dr. Slayman, who's still there and works with my oncologist, which like is kind of
That's
cool.
very
Makes me
cool.
like
Oh
a
my God.
fangirl.
Didn't he, I think he developed it in, I want to say in like the 90s, the late 90s, right?
Yeah, I
I think
forget
it was
like
like
all the dates.
1996 or something like that. Because I had just gotten diagnosed not too long after that. And I was like, thank God. Yeah.
I mean,
The
it is.
surgeon who invented the sentinel node biopsy is also from the LA area. We've got like the best,
We've got some
we're
good
lucky where
people
we are.
here.
Yeah.
So wait,
Totally.
you know this the doctor who at
I
UCLA?
haven't met I haven't
Oh.
met him directly. I found out recently that he's my neighbor, actually.
I mean,
Small
I want to
world.
knock on his
So
door with a
yeah, I
Christmas
mean,
gift
if like he
or
ever hears
a
this,
help.
like not that I'm like stalking him, but like big fan, big
Big
fan.
fan. All
Yeah,
right.
for sure. How are
I
you
yeah,
feeling now? Like how with your current regime? Because I
Yeah.
think it's also like really inspiring and helpful for people to hear like what stage 4 can look like. Because we all have such a terrible, understandable, but like we can have a terrible thought process of you just must be in bed all the time,
well, you
but
look
here, like
fabulous.
I mean,
I'm
if
gonna
you
it's
follow me on
incredible what you're
Instagram, I'm
doing.
definitely not in bed all the time. But well, to go back real quick, so the clinical trial that I was going to go into, I was
Mhm.
actually really excited about because it combines Herceptin with a new oral therapy.
oh,
It's very early on in trials, but
Great.
very low side effects and all this. And my oncologist is the investigative
Mhm.
physician on it. So like,
amazing.
physician investigator, I think is the right way to say that. And so we were really excited to do that. So I go through the millions of scans. Before you do a clinical trial, you need a baseline for everything.
Yeah.
And uh, for the first time ever in the past 4.5 years, I have no evidence of disease.
Yay!
Yay! Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I
I was
was,
gonna say, you look great. You have your hair, you
Wow.
have your eyelashes, you have your eyebrows. I mean, you look glowy. I'm just,
thank you.
I'm
Well, I mean, in the one thing that I want to emphasize with that, because not much like it's very cool, not much changes. Like I still, my next infusion is the day after Christmas, and
Sure.
we decided I couldn't do the clinical trial because there's nothing to measure, so they wouldn't be able to
Oh, I
know
love
how.
that. What a great reason to not be able to do it.
Yeah, it was really a interesting conversation with my oncologist
Mhm.
because I'm like, so we're like excited, right? But like I'm confused what we
Are
do.
we
I'm
worried?
being
Are we
rejected,
worried?
but also, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
whole
she's like,
thing.
we're excited. We're excited. But
Mm,
she's like, we can't do no treatment. But she's like,
mhm.
I also don't want to risk you being on overly aggressive treatment for no
Yeah.
reason.
Right,
Because
for
outside
sure.
of this trial, I was supposed to go back on Enhertu. That would be the
Mm,
next line of treatment. And while it's an amazing drug and all that, like it made me not being able to function
yeah.
and live. And people are having better experiences now. But that's still a little
Mhm.
traumatic to
The
think
her
back to.
That's interesting because when I was on her too, they told me there was no side effects. But I would,
Herceptin. So Herceptin,
I mean her
and
second.
HER2 is a form of chemo.
Yeah,
That's, yeah, I lost my hair on it. It is very, very different. It sounds like HER2. It's Enhertu.
in
That's
her
the
too.
drug.
That's right. Okay, because I was on
Mm.
Herceptin mixed with chemo, and then I did chemo for a year, and then after the year was done, I was just on Herceptin for another year,
Yes.
and that I didn't have any side effects on. But you're
Yeah.
saying the
Yeah.
in her too is like a newer thing that's like
Yes, makes
huge.
It's more like like another chemo, like a Taxotere, or
Yeah, that's
it's a
tough.
combination of a few drugs.
it's kind of funny where like drugs have the most wackadoodle names. Yeah, in this case, they picked two that sound nearly the same with like in
Yeah,
her two and her two. Yeah, all yeah.
Well,
and then
HER2
there's
is the
Is the type.
HER2 is the type. Yeah,
Right. Yes,
yeah.
but
But
it's
yeah,
those themes.
it's a lot to intersect. I think like in general, it's like the targeted treatments versus chemo, and then there's also like targeted chemo. So like,
Sure.
yeah.
obviously my hair didn't just start growing back. I haven't had hair
Mm.
loss for the past like 3 years.
Mm.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
and so, while the no evidence of disease thing is awesome, and like kind of a mystery and very cool if it continues, there's a lot of living that I've been doing while there was cancer
Yeah. Yeah.
knowingly in my body, and just as beneficial as being NED was, having everything under control too, like
Yeah.
knowing that I've been in infusions every few weeks for the past
Mhm.
4.5 years, and I will most likely continue to do
Mhm.
that for the rest of my life. But like the quality of life that we're able to have when things like Herceptin get invented and these things
Oh,
is really
amazing.
amazing. So I'm on Herceptin and Perjeta now. Perjeta does have some side effects, not as bad as chemos and stuff, but definitely some things to pivot through. And then
Mhm.
I'm on an oral med called tucatinib or Tukysa, that breaks the blood-brain barrier. So,
Okay.
I've been on that since having the brain tumors.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And I just had Signatera, which is like the liquid biopsy blood test, which is still negative, which is
Mhm.
really amazing. And
Amazing.
then I
Wow.
will have my scans next month to see where things are at. And as long as nothing new grows, then I can stay on the protocol I'm on. If new stuff does grow and the trial's still happening, then I could go into the trial I want to be in. But then beyond that, like I haven't exhausted all options. So while I technically live with a terminal illness, uh, I'm not dying tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's different phases. And then on the flip side of that, still getting people to understand that like it's so amazing how we can live with this and all that, but then things can fail quickly, or you
Mhm.
can, I became allergic to one of the chemos I was on,
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
different
That
things
happens.
that you can start exhausting options really quickly. And that's why research and studies are
Mhm.
so important. Uh,
Mhm.
it's also amidst those, like where people are reporting side effects and other things that help the next people going into it to prevent that. Because it's like when I didn't have cancer, if people I love did, as long as it was being treated and working, like that's all I cared about. And
Right.
now that, when you're in it, you're like, oh no, actually, like equally as important is the fact that we're humans and like we deserve to live and thrive and like have quality of life. And so I
Mhm.
find the advancements in like what we were saying with inventing Herceptin and the things that are happening at major cities and hospitals like UCLA, that's not only helping us to find future cures, but like maintaining it in the like it's treatable, just like diabetes. Like we
Mhm.
want metastatic breast cancer to become, known as a chronic illness, not a terminal one. And some
Right.
already, consider that. I have a hard time considering that yet when I still lose friends to it.
Mhm.
I think we're not
Ugh,
quite where we need
that's
to be.
yeah.
But it's pretty amazing for a, prognosis that like
Mhm.
statistically, when I was diagnosed in 2021, the life expectancy for my exact one, so HER2 positive, ER negative, metastatic, was like 18 to 24 months.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah, lots of people have been living beyond that, but that was the average still. It's already gone up a lot statistically since then. And if you don't, think about all the components added into that average, it's not only people who are like me at 34, so
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
wide range. But what's expanded is amazing. And like I feel so fortunate that I get to live my life. And I also try to be real that like a lot of this still sucks.
Yeah.
But
It's a balance.
I
It's got to
love
be like a technical balance.
like yeah, that I love that because a lot of you go through it and whoever's supporting you, family. I remember my dad being like, be strong. But I love and I'm like, be strong. Like I'm going through fucking
Keep doing
chemo
my
right
best.
now.
Yeah.
Like, be
yeah.
strong. Or like, and God forbid I ever said it, if or that. And he's like, nope, I don't want to like it's
Mm.
I love the balance of how you speak to it because it's also really upsetting if you're going through something and you have all this hope and you're so positive
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you get that allergic reaction to a medicine or something because you're building it up. So I feel like the positivity that you're talking like that rate is great, but also with like, a plan B if this doesn't work. So not setting yourself up to like really just get all your balloons popped at once,
Yeah,
as
you
a
seem
kid.
really able to just go with the flow in an incredible way.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Thank you.
Inspiring.
And some of that is like how I think a lot of us joke, like, where when people are like, you're so strong or this, and that, it's like,
Mm.
yeah, well, kind of don't have a choice.
Yeah, what's the
Um,
alternative?
but there are points, like I said, like where I was so sick that like I did realize that I had a choice. And I got so depressed. I've never been like I realized that I've never been clinically depressed. Like, I
Yeah.
thought like I had, not
Mhm.
clinically,
Mhm.
like, I thought like, oh,
Yeah,
I know
like, oh,
what
I'm
depression
depressed or
feels
yeah.
like. Yeah.
When did you
Nope.
get depressed? What was that upon diagnosis or was that during
No, on the
treatment?
Enhertu. So after the brain tumors, when the
Mhm.
chemo was working so well on the cancer, but like I was throwing up almost every morning, and
Mhm.
it was just really hard on my quality of life. And so it was about, 6 months into that where I mean, leading up to that, I expressed that this is really hard and all that. But then it was like it got to the point where I said to my oncologist, like, I don't want to live like this. Like
Yeah.
if this is my option, I don't know how much longer I can do it. And she's like, "Well,
Yeah.
then let's switch." And I was like, "Well, but like it's working, Like like
That has to
how
be a
can I
really
switch? I'm
hard
gonna
decision.
yeah, I feel like a cat with 8 lives and like I'm just like giving one up. And I'm so grateful that I switched. I talk about this a lot. Like I said, I wrote about it a lot in my book that when I did switch, I went on oral chemo called Xeloda with Herceptin infusions and taking tucatinib for the blood-brain barrier. And that worked for 2 years. And then eventually I did have that recurrence that I mentioned last year and all that. But 2 years with like very good quality of life,
Mhm.
all
See,
things
that's
considered.
so important. And I just would, if I can express anything to the listeners of this
Mhm.
podcast and stuff, I feel like it's not all textbook. And you have to go with, I felt the same way when I was going through treatment and doing the chemo that was like the Red Devil or whatever they call it, the stupid names. I mean, the whatever names, but like I couldn't deal with it either. And I was like, I don't want to live like this through this next year. It's quality of life. You have to do what's right for you and how you're going to live. And then she switched it over to a once a week thing that was a lighter cocktail for my chemo. And I was able to like, enjoy those days as much as possible.
Something that keeps coming up in this podcast is the idea of being that squeaky wheel of like knowing what your needs are, verbalizing your needs. If both of you had tried just like, no, just going to do what Chris's dad said and be tough.
So Jenni and I are starting another
like
podcast.
Unnecessarily suffer.
We're going to start another podcast called Squeaky Wheel.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And that goes back to like, we say so much to advocate for yourself. And
yes,
obviously I wholesomely believe in that. But like there's a difference between just like saying that to people and really, I think, understanding what that means. And I think it goes back to like what you asked me earlier with like, knowing your body and feeling comfortable speaking up. Like you need to not only advocate for yourself, and that I feel like advocating is when like I look at advocating like during that time when I didn't like my oncologist or like I didn't. So like to me, advocating is when you don't have the right team yet. Now, like I advocated to find the right team. Now that I have the right care team, I don't know that I don't think of it like advocating. I think of it like just communicating with the people.
I'm gonna ask one quick question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Who is your oncologist now?
Oh yeah, no, I talk about her all the time. My oncologist is Dr. Marla Lipsick-Scharf at UCLA.
Okay.
And she actually, so my original oncologist at UCLA was Dr. Sarah Hurvitz, who's amazing and brilliant. And she ended up moving hospitals. But, and then she told me when she was moving, she said, Dr. Scharf is moving out from Boston, which I'm from Boston, and she had been at Dana-Farber. And she's like, she is a younger version of me. And I was like, I am so sold.
Yeah, that's great.
And we just had this event called Cancer is a Joke. I think I was telling you guys about the comedy event, and she came. And she's so supportive of everything. Two of the fellow breasties that planned the event with me, they're professional comedians that I met through my oncologist. Like we all go to the same oncologist. So throughout the night, we called her out a lot of how much we love her and how she makes this possible. But it's like she will be the first one to say she doesn't have all the answers, because any doctor that thinks that they do, then that would mean that we are curable, right?
Exactly.
And I think that knowing that I know that she's not God, like she doesn't have every answer. She can't predict what's going to work for me or not. But the fact that like she'll present all the options to me, I know that what we're discussing and like what she's weighing in on or not is what she would do for herself, or if I were her daughter, whatever, sister, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And like that's the best we can do.
And that gives you because you have such a good relationship with her, I imagine that lets you feel safe to speak up about things you're feeling in your body when things feel
exactly
weird. Yeah.
And she said to me before, she's like, because sometimes I'll speak up and I'll be like, this symptom is like the bleeding. I was like, it wasn't that big of a deal to me before becoming anemic. I was like, I can deal with like annoying nosebleeds and stuff. And she's like, well, bring things up, because she's like, I'll let you know if you need to tough it out.
Yeah.
Like, if we're at the point where like, I need you to like tough it out a little bit so we can, or we're running out of options, or we want to get into trial that like isn't available yet. Like, she's like, I'll tell you, but she's like, we're not there. Like, we're not at a point where you need to suffer.
When I asked you earlier, how did you begin to feel comfortable again with trusting your body? Like, what is your process? There was a strong part of me that thought you were going to say meditation, like something like I have to really meditate and have a conversation. But no, I love how simple. Like, oh no, I just tell my doctor. Like, that's way easier. Yeah, I like that.
And maybe to that point too, because there definitely, and I'm sure people can relate to this pretty well, is like sometimes you'll feel something, you'll get nervous, and you won't want to tell even like your spouse or your family.
Yep.
You don't want to make the dad that's telling you to tough it out,
anyone worry or
yeah. Yep. And that I've kind of let go of too. Like I had some weird headaches this week. I mean, my last Signatera was negative. I have a brain MRI coming up. There are lots of other reasons why I could have headaches, but it trips me out a little bit. Yeah. I know that feeling. And at first I wasn't saying anything to my husband. And then I mentioned it later. I was like, I need a rest. I've like been having headaches. And he's like, how long? And I was like, this past week. And he's like, why won't you tell me? I was like, I didn't want to like make a thing. And he's like, I'm okay. Like we've been going through this for 4.5 years now. Like you're not going to scare me. Like just talk about it. And I think that that's a huge piece in just like not being afraid to do things. Like how many people are afraid to get scanned because they don't want to find out they have cancer? But how many people get scanned and don't have cancer?
Right. Or they do find it, but now it's treatable because they found it, earlier, easier, or whatever.
But I feel like
Exactly.
you're never going to, I mean, we're humans, and the anxiety level, especially coming from where you and I came from, Elissa, like having had cancer and having cancer and then going through a scan and feeling like, is there going to be more? Am I going to,
Yeah.
all the thoughts, and letting yourself have them and be like, okay, calling. I think the message, what I'm hearing from you is like, just be okay with what is like,
Mm,
okay, yeah, I'm anxious. That's normal. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I have this. And what your husband was saying, how great. Like he's like, we're in this together, and you just
that's
gotta
beautiful. Yeah.
vocalize that to me. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to scare you and
Oh,
freak you out.
Well, and I
like,
think when we put so much weight on one thing, like
I know.
that's setting ourselves up for failure. Because, before being diagnosed with breast cancer, I mean, I played college sports, I owned a gym, I've run multiple marathons. Like, I haven't used seed oils in my home for like 13 plus years because, I used to do paleo a lot and other things. Like, that's why I know that I didn't cause my cancer. Like I didn't. I think that
right.
it's environmental things. If there
I
are
do
things I
too.
could have done differently, I I mean, I still go, alcohol like 100% is an increased risk for cancer. It's a known carcinogen. If I'm going to a Rams game, I still have a beer.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
and
Yep. You're
I'm
living your life.
NED amidst
Mhm.
that, right?
Mhm.
So there's certain things where it's so personal, the choices that we make and what we choose
Mhm.
to put all the weight in. And like, it has to feel right for us because
Mhm.
equally as important to all that, I would put on like enjoying life and living it. Like, unfortunately, I don't think that a positive attitude and being happy cures cancer because I think if it did, I would
Yeah.
100% be cured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's very positive. Yeah.
it definitely, like, why would you not want that anyway? Like,
Mhm.
that helps me live my life. It helps me make rational decisions about what I'm doing. And I think that a lot of that mixes into that a lot of things matter. And so that's like my
Right.
biggest thing is that, live like it matters because it does,
Mhm.
whether you
How
And
did
have a
you
you
terminal
get, how
diagnosis.
did
certainly
you,
do.
sorry, how did
Yeah.
you get there though? Like, I feel like there's a lot of work to get to where you're at. And like,
And you mean like emotionally, mentally?
emotionally,
Yeah.
like, what do you attribute that to? Because is it time? Is it acceptance? Is it faith? Is it, like Jenny said, is there meditation mixed in there?
It's got
Like,
to be meditation.
what did you do to try
And
to get this level of calm and serenity with
And how do we
yeah.
also get it, really,
yeah,
is what
Yeah.
this is asking.
yeah.
We
I wish
want
I
it.
was better at meditating. I space out a lot. My mind's so busy, but I do try to do some of it. But I don't have a regular routine. What I'll say is that pre-cancer,
Mhm.
I was such an all or nothing person, like
Mhm.
really competitive. Like the athlete in me became,
Mhm.
I worked in financial services throughout my whole career in business development and sales, and
Yeah,
I was
30 under
always
30. You are, Chris and I were so impressed with was it the Forbes list where you're like third listed on the 30 under 30? Am I getting that right?
I don't think
No,
so.
Oh,
that
Not
was
I'm
me.
not,
that's Jacqueline.
I think it should be you. You should have been
Well,
on that,
I
list,
appreciate I
Alyssa.
appreciate that. Plenty of other wins to feel
Mhm.
good
Yeah,
about, but
yeah, yeah.
that's not a thing on my
That's
resume,
was one. Okay.
unfortunately.
That's,
Yeah, yeah,
what? Jenny's just forecasting, because that's going to happen with you.
yeah.
I think
Maybe
it is. It's going to be
let's put
40
that
under
energy
40.
out.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
I'm turning
coming.
39 in June. We got like a year and a half
Yeah.
to make 40
Yes.
under 40 happen.
Yeah,
Let's
I
do
think it's going to happen. Thank you.
that.
But what were
But
you saying? So
so
what's your secret sauce?
So when I was diagnosed, I stuck with that mentality at first. And I was like, okay, I kind of picked what lane I was going to stay in. And I was like, I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to, remove plastics. I'm going to do all these things. And I did that at the beginning. And then started having chemo side effects. And I
Mm.
was like, it literally hurts to eat food.
Mm,
How am I gonna like trying to stick too rigidly to anything was going to kill me. Like I would have been malnourished. And so I started balancing more for the first time in my life. And some of the examples are really small. Like when, I mean, I was in this like fully organic phase initially, and I still have one of those lettuce grow like vertical gardens, and we partner with a
oh,
company called Circa Cultivation that do the seedlings. So like I go pick my own salads and stuff.
mhm,
Not as my only source of food. I go out to eat and all that stuff too.
mhm,
But when I would do that, it would be like my husband had a couple months off for like family leave to take care of me during
mhm.
chemo. And so one day we were like pulling off awesome salad and all these herbs. And I was like, I don't want to like just go to the supermarket and get dressings. Like, let's head over to Santa Barbara and get like do an olive oil and vinegar tasting and like get some for the next few months down the line.
That. Mhm,
And so we drove just for the day. You know, we're not that far away. It was like an
mhm,
hour and picked out like a couple at a time that were our favorites. And that's what we still do. And so I
mhm.
started valuing like quality over quantity, balancing things out, not trying to be all one or the other because that didn't prevent me from having cancer. Why would it help me now? And like why should I
Great
make
point.
life
It's
Yeah.
so,
complicated?
I feel like a lot of the women that I've talked to or helped go through cancer and stuff, I think there are a lot of, I'm resonating because type A
Yes.
people who are all or nothing. And
Yeah.
someone said to me recently that in a storm, the trees that are rigid are the ones who don't make it. The ones who are
Mhm.
flexible are the ones who, keep going. And so that just speaks
Yeah.
to everything you're saying and to remain sort of the balance, right? And flexible with things. And that's everything you've said in this podcast is really just about your
Yeah.
flexibility,
Yes, and I feel like we've gone like
flexibility.
way off our original topic, but holy cow, the
I
things
love
that
it.
I've learned from you today, Alyssa.
Inspiring.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so glad. I mean, I think overall it's like, and again, this kind of loops back to parenting. Like, no one knows your child better than you. No one
Hmm.
knows your body better than you. And like, no one knows all the answers. So the person who can put their best foot forward is you.
Is you.
And like, if I was doing something super strict and still in this result, like maybe I'd attribute it to that. And maybe that's okay because that's like what I found comfort in. And this is just the way that's worked for me. I think like the best medicine for me has been starting my nonprofit, like what I've done with WeGotThis.org and dedicating like, all of my working time to that has been the
Hmm.
best medicine. And I feel like I have a bigger purpose than I've ever had in my whole life. Like what I'm working on
Hmm.
is the coolest thing I've ever gotten to do. I wish that cancer wasn't the thing that did that. And I always
Sure,
say to
that was
people,
amazing.
like, yeah, like don't wait for that life-altering moment.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
just know that
Yeah.
you deserve to live now regardless. But most of us have been through something,
Hmm.
and I lost my brother 10 years ago to an accidental drug overdose
Oh
and
Oh,
my
other things
goodness.
in my life, and so we were saying earlier too, like not talking about things doesn't make them go away. It makes people
Right,
not aware of them. And it's things like miscarriages, like that's not a new thing, but
right,
more
right.
people are talking about it. And, we did have a miscarriage before having our daughter Ellie. And I felt so supported because I
Mhm,
knew my friends who had gone through it because we
mhm,
talked
mhm.
about it. And
Right.
I think that we all deserve to have those resources where we feel comfortable. And I always try to preface too by like not everyone needs to be as public about it as I do,
Mhm,
as I am. And the ones of us who do feel comfortable doing it, I get a lot of messages from people who aren't as open about it.
mhm.
And knowing that my voice is helping them feel seen or giving them information that they might not be comfortable finding, like that's huge. And that's where I do feel like it's all a team thing and we're all
And
filling in
speaking
gaps.
of finding you, we'll link in the show notes to your website, wegotthis.org. But where else can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I also, I came out with my book, We Got This, How I Learned to Thrive with Terminal Cancer, and I'm a public speaker. You can find out more about that at elissacalver.com. And then you can find me across all social media platforms at Elissa Calver or at We Got This org. It's just both I find, I hope you find fun
Mhm.
and informative and helpful
I love
in
your
all sorts of
website.
different ways. Yeah, so all those fun things, and if anyone has any questions or ways they'd like to get involved, you can always email us
Mhm.
directly at info@wegotthis.org too, and would love to open up the community as much as we can. We've grown this year from 1,600 registered users to over 13,000.
Amazing.
And the way that the community's grown has told me that these things that we're talking about and like resonating with each other, like we're not alone.
Right.
Clearly, it's resonating with a lot of others too. And the more that we can find solutions for it, the more we can support each other.
Well, I'm getting your book because you've inspired me so much today, even just with, your message of acceptance, flexibility, balance, and just being your own advocate. I mean, we could apply that to so many different values in life. So
This is
thank you
really,
for
really
being
great.
on, Elissa.
Thanks,
This
Elissa.
honestly
Thank you guys. This was so
to
nice.
know you, and
So glad you reached out. It's a lot of fun. And now we live near each other.
we're
Now
hanging
we know
out.
that.
Yeah.
We're getting together.
Just the beginning.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much. Thank you for joining us today on My Breastie Says. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this with a breastie who needs it. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't forget to support our sponsors. We donate a portion of proceeds to charities supporting cancer patients in need. And we welcome questions and/or topic suggestions. So please submit at mybreastiesays.com.
The conversations on My Breastie Says are based on personal experiences and professional insight, but they are not intended to replace your medical advice. Always consult your doctor or licensed healthcare provider for medical guidance specific to your situation. We're here to support, not prescribe.
See you next time.
Bye!